How's everyone doing today? Nice. I like the energy.
There we go.
Keep it up. This is good. All right. So this is a talk on Unreal Engine and the latest gaming platforms. Excited to chat with y'all. We'll do a quick session and we'll do some Q&A. Hopefully you brought it. All right, agenda-wise, we're going to do some introductions, both for ourselves, for the company, some background, our method of operation as a studio, because it really factors into some of the things we're going to talk about. We're going to define platforms, because it's nowhere near as simple as it used to be. And then we're going to talk about support, differentiation, and specialization, which are very different levels of taking care of hardware and of gamers. We're going to go through several technical details, abstracted from platforms. And then we're going to do some examples, some past, some recent, and some upcoming. And I'm really going to spend some time on partnerships that will be informed by all the stuff we're talking about now. Sound good? All right. Energy up. All right, speaker introductions. So I'm Adam Creighton. I'm the founder and studio head for Enduring Games. I have a long history in the games industry. What I do is I build people. I get really talented people. I help them do more than they were able to do before. I build teams of those people and companies of those people, and we do things that make no sense whatsoever. So that's what I do. Kevin?
Hey guys, my name's Kevin Nappoly. I'm a rendering graphics lead for Adam. Been with him for about 5 years now, almost. Actually, about 5 years this week.
Yep.
So I've been in graphics for a while, and I've done all things from weather systems, reflection systems, to the other side also, cross-play systems for different kinds of titles, and it's been a wild ride since I've joined here.
Has not been boring. All right, let's talk a little bit about Enduring Games and our philosophy and focus and why we're doing this talk. So we are a bunch of things when we're looking at it just through the Epic Games lens. So we're service providers, we're independent developers, we are in the partner program, we've been in since the beginning, and we've been gold tier since they add the gold tier status, including this year. We do licensee support, so if you are asking questions on pro support, a lot of times you will see answers from Enduring Games staff. And we also recently did migration videos if you're migrating from one engine to Unreal Engine. Been very popular videos with developers that are migrating and changed some of my relationships. All right. So let's talk about becoming experts in what is next before it is even next. So as a method of operation, what Enduring Games does is we focus on the next thing. We also focused on the next thing, and we focus on the next thing. We build expertise in each of these areas, so when these things come out, before they're available to the general development community, we are experts and have experience in those things, and then we're working on that next iteration over time. And this is something that anybody can do. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of focus, but becoming rarefied experts makes you a go-to treasure in the industry. As we look at kind of the correction that's going on in the industry, this is one of those ways that we can separate ourselves, that you can separate yourself and differentiate as you're doing things with people that you work with. This does not mean you chase the new shiny. We didn't pivot. There's lots of great technologies out there, but we didn't pivot and become only the NFT company or the Bitcoin company or the third coming of VR company or anything like that. Those all have valid uses, great technologies, but we don't chase the new shiny. We're really about that next evolution of game development, and we'll talk about some examples of that and that differentiation. All right, so let's define platforms, because it's not as easy as it used to be. It's become increasingly nuanced. There's kind of the traditional definition as you look at the PC infrastructure, including GPUs and CPUs, the console side of things, and then mobile with Apple and Android and other systems. Then there's the ecosystem side of platforms, whether that is Steam, the Epic Games Store, Xboxes, Play Anywhere, the PlayStation ecosystem, or any of those. Those are platforms that you develop for that have development implications and specialization implications. AIs and pipelines have always been a thing, but they're rapidly becoming more and more front and center for what you are developing for. Whether it's traditional DirectX or OpenGL or Vulkan side of things, now you have these platforms from Intel, from AMD, from NVIDIA, from ARM. We've talked about some of these in the past. We'll touch on those really briefly and then do some quick updates on them. But that's a whole other level of platform that is really important in game development right now. But it's getting messier, right? I mean, even when you look at console, whether it's PlayStation 4, 5, PlayStation 5 Pro, Nintendo Switch 2, this week, y'all, Thursday. You excited?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. That's where the energy is. And so there's a lot of these devices that you've got to aim at and specialize for and develop for differently. Even when you look at PC, you're looking at Steam, you're looking at the Epic Games Store, you're looking at GPUs, CPUs, you're looking at the new handheld movements. And those things are increasingly challenging and opportunistic to develop for. But even you break it down to Steam, you've got SteamOS, you've got Steam Store, you've got PC, you've got the Steam Deck, you've got Linux, you've got Windows, you've got Apple. So all of these are things that need to factor in for how you're developing because it's not a one size fits all and it's not a one button publish kind of situation. So I want to talk briefly about supporting, differentiating, and specializing for these different platforms. So there's the support side of things. This is kind of minimal to ship. Think of it as almost platform agnostic, where you ship a product and it doesn't matter whether it is on PC or Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. You're supporting that platform as a release device, but you're not doing anything that differentiates on the platform. You'll see this a lot in some larger titles where there are co-marketing or other business relationships where they can't specialize or provide a feature on one platform that they don't on another. So it creates kind of an even release across these pieces of hardware. Differentiation is where you start doing things to implement unique features for the hardware. If you look at Nintendo Switch as an example, it might be where you also support the fact that you can have separate Joy-Con controllers, and you can have a single Joy-Con controller if your button mapping works, where you have a single Joy-Con controller in horizontal mode, and so two players can play on a single device. Specialization is where we live. So specialization is that exemplification of the functionality or the ecosystem or paradigms unique to that platform. So that's really going to the nines and doing things like doing gameplay implemented and certification compliant things with touchscreen. Or say you have a really complex button set in your inputs, and it doesn't fit on a single Joy-Con controller in horizontal mode, but you implement the mapping and also do auto for like auto mantling or other things so that players have these options to leverage the special device that they have. And this is what we like to do. We like to make projects and products special for hardware. The more you specialize, the more you will stand out. Gamers play games on platforms. So if you meet them there, they're very excited to play your product on the platform that they have. They want to feel, and I want to feel, I'm a gamer, when I buy the game, and I buy games multiple times, and I want it to be special on Xbox and on PlayStation and on Nintendo Switch. That's very important to me. I like that care, I like that craftspersonship, I like that effort. Partners want gamers on their platforms. So get them there. And this is a way that you can get them there by specializing, which is not just releasing it on the platform, but really doing something that feels native to the platform. All right, we're going to go into some technical details. These are abstracted across different PC, console, mobile, and some non-traditional hardware targets. So we'll go through a bunch of these examples, and then we'll talk about some of the implications to it.
All right. A lot of great announcements today. A lot of things being covered in real amazing talks. There's not an exhaustive list of details. All of these talks also factor into a lot of the recommendations we're going to make today. So like Adam was saying, a little bit should be said about defining a problem space from all of these fun visuals that Adam was showing off. There's multiple platforms, a lot of specification variants between them, and a lot of certification requirements can also drive how your product is going to be performing on the platform. It could also drive designs based on those as well. One thing we've found that developers should do, we're still seeing some developers not doing this yet, and it's basically using a unified content pipeline where you can target multiple platforms using a single asset pipe. And instead of trying to specialize every branch and per platform, where it leads to a lot of developer overhead and causes potential asset conflicts, or even especially when you're in your release cycle, you're going to have to perform all your optimization passes across the board, and taking one stream for multiple platforms will definitely help you in this case. And on that note, one of the big features for UE5 is Nanite. And people here have been using Nanite for quite a bit. And it generally removes the need for log generation that you would have done before. However, one thing that often gets missed is the vertex to triangle ratio. It's a very important thing for Nanite, especially for the clustering efficiency, and which directly affects the memory footprint that your GPU is going to have. Whether it's console, PC, or mobile, like that can pretty much be your constraining factor. And if you're in a non-Nanite case, it can be even worse because vertex data is far more heavier than index data. And the more LODs you have, the more you're also going to stream in. If you're not using mesh streaming, this is going to be even worse. And for the cases that Nanite can't support, like complex collisions or Niagara mesh emitters or ray tracing, you're going to use a fallback. And in an additional case, if you're supporting platforms like PC, console, mobile devices across the board, you're going to have use for fallbacks on certain platforms. And in those cases, traditional fallbacks and LOD chains will be your solve for rendering overhead and even memory footprint. And the only problem is that when you add a LOD chain, it's going to affect all platforms. It's not that the fallbacks are always streamed in. Even if you're using mesh streaming, you're going to have at least a minimum MIP. One thing we've been doing with our partners and projects have been to strip this in our own way during this static mesh serialization. And on a per asset, and depending on whether the asset will ever need the fallback at runtime. With UE56, this is actually now part of the engine where you can also configure it per platform or per asset. What we've noticed so far is depending on how your scenes are laid out, this can save from megabytes to gigabytes sometimes in memory.
Yeah, and this is an example of, like Kevin was saying, we built this functionality prior to being available in 5.6. A lot of times there are things, even though we have full visibility to the roadmap, that we need earlier. And so oftentimes we will build things that we know are coming in engine versions, but we need to take care of our partners with which we're doing co-development. So we'll build those things in advance on our own. And sometimes those find their way back in.
And speaking of per platform asset configuration, most common things you will have to do in terms of laying out your target platforms and just configuring it across the board is setting up static mesh groups or skeletal mesh groups or texture groups and Niagara effect types. This will offer your scalability across your multiple platforms. And you can cater the fidelity and memory footprint to the platform you're targeting. And good things about this is you can either do it per asset with like min LODs or all the settings you get, or you can do it as groups in a device profile setting. And one thing we've noticed and sort of relied on more in the recent past is doing more on just those individual parameters per device profile as opposed to just doing it per platform. This gets us an additional saving on sub-profiles. Like Adam was saying, it's even if you take one platform, there may be several sub-platforms. Like for Xbox, it's the S and the X configurations, the PS5 and the Pro. It can get even more of a problem when you're dealing with Androids and the PCs of the world that have multiple layers of sub-profiles.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where you'll see this on some games where you buy the game and there's one Xbox Series version. And it's the same version for the Series S and for the Series X, and that can create a problem where either a lot of headroom is left on the Series X, and it's not as satisfying as an experience it is, but it's very playable on the Series S. Or sometimes you have a less than satisfying experience where it's not as playable as you would like on the Series S because they focused on the Series X. And this is one of the tools we use to specialize within sub-platforms.
And to that same note, configuring in materials can go a long way as well. This is both performance and for memory footprint. Like the more you use permutations of shaders, you're gonna overload your memory budget on just registering your shaders as well. And these are a few ways to configure your shaders. In this set, the quality level switch will probably be the worst in terms of shader permutations. However, if you're targeting certain qualities per platform, you have the option to discard material qualities you're not using. With the feature level switch and the data-driven shader platform switches, you actually cater it as a single permutation per platform. Also, extending these things will require modifications, but can offer that extra bit of specialization support that you would not have had otherwise. talking about a lot of the per asset stuff, moving on to levels. There was a great talk about how streaming can be optimized just before the stocks. I'm not going to go too much into this, but the most of the part is generally cell sizes that you're configuring in world partition is not going to be configurable at runtime. However, you can configure the loading ranges for the HLOD layers or the runtime grids, which the runtime grids already have a CVAR that Epic provides. The HLOD layers are named layers, so you can actually make up CVARs to drive those through device profile configurations. And this can actually give you an additional set of streaming options for your device profile management, even if you're doing sub-profiles as well. And a lot of the cook time configuration, one thing that you may not have dealt with is when you start cooking for a platform, the default INIs are the actual thing that's becoming the baseline. Epic's using these kinds of classes to actually query the platform INIs to get the right value for the platform. And if being seasoned developers, there's a lot of serialization options that you are going to add as part of the cook process or any of the serialization pipelines. This is the way you would want to make sure you're querying the right values and making it specialized for the platform. And with all of this said, one of the biggest issue with all of this is device iteration. This can slow down your iteration process. Like cook time for large-scale games could be hours, tens of hours, depending on how large your assets are. And that can be slow. And especially with the more number of platforms, that can be exponentially slow. One thing we found, even before the Zen snapshots for Cook came out, we just had the build farm publish the Cook folder and the stage builds folder as well. So when people got in, they already start with a Cook without having to do the Cook themselves or have any sort of indeterministic issues with that. When you're doing this, one of the issues we ran into is the INIs used by the build machine may not match the developer INI, especially with codevs like us. We may use a different DDC configuration, which is where we use the iterative ignore INIs, where certain things we know will overlap and not cause issues. We can actually use that to make iterative cooks. This is the old iterative cooking system, which we use for certain aspects of development when you're standing up a platform. And especially when you're standing up a platform, adding more CVAR-driven options to just drive basic things like input or stuff like that can really help quite a bit because it reduces the need to have a build machine do all that. And when you're standing up a platform, there may not even be a build machine to generate all that for you. And
we do a lot of CVARs, and we're careful about it. Like we have best practices for the things that we name internally. And one of the things we do as co-developers is we will build products that solve problems. And when we're doing co-development with a partner, we will sometimes say, hey, we have a solution for this. We're going to use our solution in your project, but that doesn't transfer ownership. But we have our system and our CVARs and everything like that. Sometimes we will then update the CVARs to match their styles in the same way we would for code standards or anything else to make sure that it's less friction for them as they're moving forward in the project.
And to help with a lot of this, again, to build on the iteration part, automated testing frameworks is probably your best way to reduce a lot of that unknown of cooking, or if you have to make a cook for everything that you need to test, that's going to be a very slow process. There was a talk just before this, which also talked about the need for things that you don't have to reproduce every moment of the way, where you can use like a web-based API that just stores all your performance data, and someone on the tech director or even the studio leadership can continually monitor stuff. And instead of trying to sample and reproduce it on a build every time, you can go from the data and identify what a possible list of CLs to actually identify the issues. And with automated testing frameworks, if you're sharing devices with the build farm and users, you're going to need some sort of checkout or check-in process for devices as well. We found that Horde's device management helps plenty in this case as well.
Yeah, on the tools and analyze side, so we're a very data-driven studio. We do a lot of analysis to make sure we understand where the problems are, where the opportunities are, what we need to do to fix. We're well past the days of, hey, just let's decimate meshes or just reduce quality of items. It's way more complicated than that now. So we get that data and that information, and we're able to do a lot higher fidelity and performance on devices that don't make sense because we're looking at the actual information that we're getting out of all of the profiling traces and other tools.
So we've talked about quite a few suggestions at this point. Does that mean if you've implemented all of this, you're going to be done and specialized? Not necessarily.
Magically.
Especially if you're working in a multiplayer cross-play environment, a lot of these suggestions is going to fight each other because multiplayer replication and streaming and collision don't necessarily play with each other if you keep modifying everything in a decoupled fashion. Collisions, especially, like Adam was saying, like if you're trying to change the meshes around quite a bit, collisions can be a bigger problem. If you're pulling down the streaming ranges for a bunch of objects or layers, you're going to see parts of the world not streamed in on certain clients, and that can potentially cause multiplayer issues as well. So when you're in such cross-play environments, it is better to couple a bunch of these platforms together and try to identify more common paths to optimization as opposed to doing it all in an isolated fashion. And one thing that an additional part of the automated testing is it is possible to do multiplayer testing with automated test cases. Probably worth adding that cross-play stack as part of your automated testing framework as well to identify some of these issues earlier on. And some things that additionally enable and gives you additional levers is resolution scaling and frame generation. We did a talk last year talking through some of these techniques and how we did a bunch of pipelines along these lines. We'll show some examples later, but these are client-side only things that could potentially benefit performance and help you put better visuals or even better loading ranges on things that you would not have otherwise. But with that said, I'll pass it on to Adam to talk through some examples.
Awesome. Cool. Man, we are moving fast. High energy. All right, some recent examples. So we talked previously in October at Unreal Fest about our Project Legend, which is an internal R&D framework that is product-driven. So it's not noodling, it's not academic, it's not just experimenting. It is solving problems we know need to be solved in a productized way so that we can then do it for other projects and our internal projects. So it's uses proprietary engines, Unity, Unreal Engine that's got a very heavy focus on UE5 and UE4. We use a lot of the assistive technologies like AMD and from AMD and ARM and NVIDIA. There's a lot of different things we saw from design to engineering to art pipeline. We mentioned in October Arc Survival Ascended, our work with the Studio Wildcard team have been fantastic, and implementing AMD FSR3, including porting the frame generation to console. So that's something very unique to us and to the project. We did the same thing earlier with Immortals of Avium, which is a great title from the former Ascendant studio. That's a UE5 title, and we brought in AMD FSR and did work with AMD FSR and DLSS prior to it being available for the larger development community. So those are things we've talked about before and just kind of level setting the field. We continue to do work in these areas. So things we've done recently in Project Legend is we've done quite a bit in continually keeping up our UE5 versions across multiple versions. Because we do assessments across multiple projects, we do concurrent development, we have multiple projects going on at once. Implementing AMD FSR4, DLSS4, more work with Intel, Unity, ARM, proprietary, and adding platform support to Unreal Engine versions that do not support the platform natively. So when we're developing for a project and doing co-development and also have ownership of a platform that isn't supported in the engine, we add that support ourselves. We continue to work with Studio Wildcard because they're fantastic and we like dinosaurs. And we're doing more work on Unreal Engine 5 and AMD FSR 4 and DLSS 4, PS5 Pro, and PSSR, which are updates from when we last talked about this in October. We recently started working with ARM and doing a lot with their accuracy super resolution, which is a new assistive technology. There's a lot of things happening in this space, and they don't just increase fidelity, they also help with power consumption and have a lot of options, and the ARM team has been fantastic to work with. We talked in October about the RHI backend and some work we've done there, and porting it from mobile to Nintendo Switch. And then since then, we've been doing more. The stuff we can talk about is the Vulkan backend, and we'll do a separate thing later for some numbers outside of Unreal Fest. Now we have some incoming examples that are exciting, and so we like talking about this. So like I said, we talked about Ark, Survival, Ascended, really big changes as we move in, and it's happening this week. So surprise, we're kind of scooping it a little bit for Studio Wildcard. They said we could. They are fantastic humans. And then also, if you're in for Thursday, Grove Street Games on the mobile ultimate version of the game is going to be doing a talk on mods and the mod ecosystem on Unreal Engine on, I think, Thursday morning, right? So anyway, this week, there'll be an update to Ark, and it will add DLSS 4, it'll add FSR 4. We added PSSR for PS5 Pro, and updates to the frame generation on console. So we're really excited about all these changes. This is a hefty amount of technical work. It's dropping this week. Some of these will require driver or other updates from the independent hardware vendors, but this is hot off the presses. Like, I don't even know what time it is. It might be happening right now. It might be right now. So we showed this. So I have this when I talk to people about some of the case studies that we've worked on, and we showed this slide, which is an eye chart, and I apologize for that. But we showed some of the things that we had done when we showed this in October. The updates as we add the PlayStation 5 Pro platform, as we add FSR 4 and DLSS 4, some other experiments that we've done, and then updating not just the engine, but also the FSR version for FSR 3. It's a constantly moving target to keep technology moving forward and to take care of our partners. Games aren't static anymore. Every game is a live services game, whether or not it's a traditional live services game. That is actually a good thing. It keeps the game up to date and fresh and available for gamers, and creates opportunities to push technology forward and add more and more for gamers and game developers in a very positive way. So that's super exciting. All right. Incoming examples. Oof. All right, so y'all, it's Tuesday. It's not Thursday, it's Tuesday. So I won't talk about the titles, but super excited, very excited about the stuff we've been doing with Nintendo Switch 2. All the stuff that I said before about becoming experts in things well before they have general availability to the development public counts in spades here. With some really cool things that our partners will be announcing throughout the rest of the year. And a lot of the things that we talked about on the technical side, as far as things to keep in mind and tools and techniques, all apply to this platform as well. That's me teasing everyone. All right, so, but how do you do this? Because this is really important. This partnering, adapting, and innovating is how you take care of these really challenging, differentiated platforms. So a lot of things will come up as you're trying to move a game to new hardware or to hardware that doesn't exist yet. Things like, this is how it works, or this is how it should work, or this does not work, or they need to support us. We just have a mentality that none of that's valid, right? We take the experience that we have and the expertise and the context, but we kind of have to start over for a lot of these and build on our expertise that we have for brand new situations that are very low level every time. Building for new platforms requires flexibility. So we kind of do a four-part kind of process. I mean, there's that technical analysis we do. We look at the gaps, what needs to be filled, who are we going to have fill those, and how are we going to do it. We look at what's available. One of the great things about an engine like Unreal Engine is you have the entire engine. So you don't have to evaluate only what you know or what makes sense. You've got the entire engine source code to make changes and to support a platform. Build a plan. Who's going to do what work? You're going to be solving problems that have not been solved before. So we look at people's slant expertise and how we can aim them at new directions. At Enduring Games, I build people who are very broad and deep generalists in several areas, and then they specialize in two or more areas. This creates opportunities for people to really build their skill sets in a really powerful and meaningful way that benefits these development challenges. And then you adapt what you have. You extend and you re-implement. This is more than just porting CLs. So when I talked about adding platform support for a version of the engine that didn't have it in the engine from Epic, we looked at change lists, features, code from all the platforms. And we looked at what we needed to do, and we adapted and re-implemented those features and code snippets and entire systems in some cases to support the platform we needed to support for our partners. That's not trivial work, but it is really needed work and not uncommon work in the industry. So I want to talk about partnerships a little bit more. So creating incredible results out of these hard to get partnerships, because we're really fortunate. We get to work with Nintendo and Xbox and PlayStation and ARM and NVIDIA and AMD and just these tremendous partners and Gearbox and all these folks who are fantastic. It's super easy. So here's the secret. 100% be a good partner. 100% do not be a bad partner. It's kind of like being in a relationship. If you want to be in a really good relationship, be that really good person in the relationship. My wife likes to say when she stopped looking for Mr. Right, she found me. Take that as you will. I love her so much. Partnerships are relationships built on each side being their best, right? That is whether you're a developer working with a publisher, whether you're a developer working with other developers in your development studio, or you're a co-developer. It really is about, okay, how do you bring it up to 100% or more and elevate the entire relationship? Because it really drives people to do the same thing. And my doing a good job is not dependent on other parties doing a good job. It really is about me doing the right thing. So talking about that a little bit more, we really focus on partner needs. So it's not, oh, so-and-so platform would really love our game. It's, okay, what does this platform need? How does what I'm bringing to them fit into their portfolio needs, their demographic, what they're trying to do from a timing perspective, even in a release calendar for Q1 2026? Like, where do I meet them where they're at? And I want to make sure that it's a collaborative relationship, not a usury relationship. It's not what they can do for me, it's what we can do together. One of the things I talk about with my studio is we do really big wins, and I do not have to be the biggest winner. I want to do something that wouldn't happen unless people were collaborating together, and then we do things that make no sense until it comes out, and people are like, oh, that's perfect, that's amazing. Protect confidentiality. This is super important. Protecting your partners and trade secrets in the industry nets more and earlier access over the years and generations. There are a lot of the projects that we do that are conversations that started with me 20 years ago. And we just look for those right opportunities when it made sense. But our partners don't have to worry about us with confidentiality or protecting intellectual property or any of those things. The game industry is not great at this. It's getting better, but it's had a reputation that it has earned over the years, and it needs to continue to get better. But if you show yourself to be very respectful of other people's confidentiality, intellectual property, and their needs, it tends to net out much better relationships. And then being self-sufficient. This is an interesting balance, right? Because for us as co-developers, we can be the people that people throw things over the wall and we'll just get it done. And we'll get it done correctly. Or we can be those embedded developers that work side by side with our partners on these things, being in their Slack channels, being in their stand-ups, visiting with them all the time. But we like to balance that lighter touch, lower friction development with our partners to get higher income and positive impact, so that we're making sure that we're staying in line with their vision, their goals, their changes in directions, but we're not a friction point at all. A lot of times when we do projects as Enduring Games, we are studio's first time genuine co-development studio, because we're not resource augmentation or we're not a body shop or anything like that. We really are about working with our partners, and we don't stay in a lane. We look for opportunities to elevate our partners and do really special things together. And this is what comes out of things like this. This is what comes out of the titles that we've done as Enduring Games, titles that members of our team have done that are partnership driven. These are not titles that just happened because people were at the studio and it happened to release a game. These are titles from our staff that people worked on, contributed to, and those titles and features in those titles happened because of our team's mentality, collaboration, and work together. And it really is about the relationships. We've got so many people here from ARM and AMD and NVIDIA and Wildcard and Gearbox and all sorts of folks. They've just really made us successful over the years. Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and so and this is a small list, and this like terrifies me putting this up because I know I forgot someone, but I really focused on people who contributed directly to the success of what we're talking about just today. So this is just the today kind of thing. So it really takes a community of people who really have an interest in taking care of each other, are excited about taking care of each other, and are doing big things like releasing redacted things at an exciting time in the industry. All right, so that's what we got. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. That is a QR code to our link tree, which will get you all of the information about the studio and everything else. We're at Enduring.Games. You can also get us a bizdev at Enduring.Games, and we are hiring. We're a physical on-site studio in Austin, Texas. We focus on console and high-end GPU and CPU and specialized services. We're a full-service studio doing work in Austin, and we love it because we're gamers making games. All right, we're at time. Thank you for the question. Thanks all. Appreciate you.
Thank you all.